Welcome back, my wonderful people. Thank you so much for staying with me on this journey. Your support means the world to me and helps my channel grow. So Melanie has discovered that Sasha, her smart mirror, has come to life. I don't know about you, but if I were to be in a situation like that, I'd have packed up and left it way behind. Comment and tell me what you'd do. I drove to Chris's apartment building. I hadn't seen or spoken with him since our breakup. I'm gonna have to beg and grovel for forgiveness. I said some truly nasty things to him when we fought. I spied his car parked in front of the building, and it gave me courage to get out of my car. I entered the building and got in the elevator, then took a deep breath when I came to his door. He opened the door after I knocked a few times. The expression on his face when he saw that it was me made me falter. However, the thought of having to go back to that thing in my apartment gave me courage. I squared my shoulders and showed him my best smile. "Hi, Chris, may I come in?" He stepped back and I walked in. His apartment, which was usually spotless, was untidy. I sat gingerly on the couch next to some clothes he had piled on it. "What do you want? As you can see, I'm in the middle of something," he said coldly. I noticed that he was walking kind of stiffly. Now, where had I seen that before? "Did you pull a muscle?" I asked him, eyeing him up and down. "I went jogging this morning." "Why are you here?" he asked again. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. "Do you remember me telling you that my mirror was acting strange?" "Well, I have proof." I beckoned him to sit beside me and showed him what my camera had recorded. He watched the footage until the end, and then sat back. There was a frown on his face, and then he looked at me. "How did you get this footage?" he asked calmly. I told him about the camera I had installed. He shook his head and asked me to wait while he changed. I was overjoyed that I didn't have to beg for his help. I knew he'd know what to do. While I waited, I looked around the living room. It was so unlike Chris to have his clothes strewn around like this. He was the poster boy for neatness. I started to straighten up when I noticed the pile of clothing on the couch beside me. There was a shirt next to me that was sticky and wet with what looked like blood. I stood up quickly away from the couch. I could hear Chris on the phone, and then he came out. He was dressed, and I pointed to the shirt I'd dropped on the floor. "There's blood on that shirt. Did you hurt yourself?" "I had a nosebleed when I got back from jogging." "Come on, let's go take down your mirror," he said, and went ahead of me to open the door. He grabbed his toolkit by the door and waited for me to walk past him to lock his door. I felt confident that he would help me. We got into my car, and I let him drive. As we drove, I answered his questions concerning the mirror. He wanted to know if I tried to do anything to the mirror. An odd question, but I told him no because I wasn't sure until I'd seen the footage. He asked if I'd call the company about the mirror. I told him that I hadn't thought of that. He said that it was a good thing I hadn't. He suggested that the company was probably part of it. Then he wanted to know how I managed to put up a camera. I explained how I got it, and he didn't say anything other than I was clever. When we got back to my place, he took the keys from me and unlocked the door. I walked in behind him and stopped short. A partial replica of myself was standing in the living room staring at the camera it ripped out of my wall. "Did you think I wasn't going to find this?" the thing with Sasha's voice asked. I turned to get away, but Chris grabbed me. His hold felt tight on my arm. I looked up at him and his face went in and out of focus for a few seconds. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but we can't allow you to ruin our work," he said to me. He led me to the couch and sat me down. His expression told me that it wouldn't be a good idea if I tried to get up. I looked from him to the abomination staring at me from across the room. "Thanks for the heads up, Chris, darling. Did she get anything good?" Chris got up to stand by it and they both stared at me. "Just you practicing her walk." "How close are you to finishing?" "I should be done by tonight. Won't it be just fabulous for her to watch me become her?" asked Sasha happily. "What do you mean by become me?" I asked. My heart was pounding. This surely couldn't be happening, but I couldn't help staring at it. Sasha walked toward me with my walk and struck a pose. "Why, just what I said, darling. I will be you before the night is through. Tomorrow morning I will sashay into your office and be a very, very fabulous you. I was getting angry. And how do you plan on accomplishing that? I'm right here, I threw back at it. That's why I'm here, to keep you from interfering, Chris said quietly. What do you have to do with this? When I told you about what was happening, you told me that I was imagining things, I told him, still not comprehending his part in all of this. Perhaps I should explain everything from the very beginning. You were brought on board because of me. After my transformation, I had to bring others in to form a community. I started seeing you shortly after to keep people from suspecting anything. My coworkers had started talking behind my back, saying that I was acting weird and was antisocial. So, to keep them from watching too closely, I got a girlfriend, he began. I was listening, but I was also watching Sasha out of the corner of my eyes. Sasha was contorting like it was having some sort of seizure. With a girlfriend, they stopped talking. It was easy to get your attention with the mirror placed outside the store next door to your hair salon. Once you bought a unit, it was easy to spread around. Julius Benton is an incredibly good friend of mine, and he is another plant to make sure Sasha accomplishes her transformation. I was confused. What does my client have to do with anything, with all this? Julius is a transformed client of Mirror Inc, just like I am, Chris informed me. What? I don't believe you, I stated. Before he could answer, my doorbell rang. I made to get up to answer it, but Chris gave me a look that said, "Don't move," and I sat back down. He went to the door and opened it to Julius, and I can tell you, my shock was complete. Then it came to me. That day at the restaurant, he walked with that stiff gait, too. Julius smiled at me, pleased with himself. "Ah, Miss Hunter. How are you?" he asked. "There's no time for pleasantries. Sasha's found the glitch," Chris told him curtly. "What are you talking about?" I asked. I didn't want to be left out of the loop. After all, they were talking about the new me. Call it pride, but if I was going to have a double, I wanted it to be perfect. "You mentioned the stiff way I walked to Sasha when you were telling her how you got my account. Well, she found a way to fix that," Benton clarified for me. Sasha stood up straighter and tossed its hair. "There was a glitch in our programming. We weren't perfect. Thanks to your paranoia, when you had the power shut down to install that little camera, I got a jolt when it came back on. I found it when I did my diagnostic. I sent the information on to the plant. They'll be incorporating it into all the new units. You two will have to go in for the upgrade," Sasha said proudly. "Wow, that's a relief. I was getting tired of telling everyone I pulled a muscle at the gym," Benton said. "How long have you been a robot?" I asked him. Julius looked offended. "I am not a robot. I am an advanced mirror image of the former Julius Benton. I am him in every way." "But don't you have wires and such inside that body?" I asked, trying to prove my point. "The only wires inside my body are in my head. Everything else is a biosynthetic polymer. I can eat, drink, and poop," he insisted. I almost gagged when I thought all the times Chris and I had been intimate. I didn't want to think about it. Excuse me, what happens to me after you finish becoming me?" I asked. I had the feeling that the blood I saw in Chris's apartment wasn't from a nosebleed. "We are not barbarians, dear. You will be taken to the recycling facility where your body will further our development. Very humane, you'll see," Benton said with a smile. It was then I got up and ran to the kitchen. Chris tried to catch me, but since he still had that glitch, I made it there before he did. I had been practicing self-defense in that I had a knife all ready for me to grab if I were ever in danger in my home. This certainly was a situation demanding that I defend myself. I slashed at him before he had a chance to react. While he was dealing with the cut across his middle, I pushed him aside and dashed to the door. Julius was standing guard there, but again, a slash across his neck had him doubled over, and I opened the door. Sasha was standing outside the door, but when I lifted the knife, she stepped back with her hands lifted. "Nah, girl, I just got this face. You will not mess it up." I pushed her back and ran. Thank God I kept my spare keys in my pocket. I looked down at myself and was further glad that I was wearing my crossover bag. I was set. I had my car keys, my bag, some money, credit cards, and my phone. I wasn't even shaking. I was over the shock. For months now, I had been speculating whether my mirror was alive or not. and now seeing it come to pass was less of a shock. I started my car and pulled out of the parking space. Where was I going to go? I didn't want to go to family. Firstly, because I didn't want to put them in danger of becoming biosynthetic polymers themselves. And secondly, I was afraid that they had already become biosynthetic polymers. I drove for hours and then stopped at the first bank I came to. I withdrew all my money and transferred it to one of those on-the-go cards. I gave the clerk my email address to send me the final card and got back into my car. I made sure the name on the card would be different since I realized that when Sasha got herself together, she would be assuming everything that was me, including my bank account. Aunt Julia hadn't pushed me to change my documents when she adopted me. I used my pre-adoption name. I only use my real name for work. Officially and legally, I was Melanie B. Hunter. The B was for Bradshaw. I stopped at a truck stop to rest and eat. The burger tasted like cardboard, but it couldn't be helped. I got back into my car, moved it to a secluded spot, and closed my eyes. I needed to rest. The next morning, I awoke and quickly used the restroom at the truck stop and got back on the road again. I didn't know where I was going, but all I knew was that I had to keep moving. The further I got, the safer I felt. I didn't know if they were going to kill me back there, but however humanely they thought their recycling method was, to me it wasn't. I'm quite sure Chris killed his double, and Sasha, thank God, was a coward. By now they've probably repaired themselves and gotten that upgrade Sasha was talking about. Being alive was better than having a career at the magazine, so I wasn't going back there. I was a frugal person, so I had enough money to live on until I could get another job. I finally stopped in Worcester, Massachusetts. I booked a room at a hotel and took a much-needed shower. Then I went out to get a few essentials. I bought some undies, jeans, and tops. I also bought sneakers and a jacket. If I decided to stay longer, I would need warmer clothes. However, that was a few months away. Finally, I bought microwavable foods and locked myself in my room. The television was my eyes and ears to the outside world for a few days. A week later, I allowed the housekeeper to clean the room while I went out. I wanted to call my aunt, but I didn't want to do it from my room. Chris was smart enough to trace my call, so I drove into the next town to make the call. The phone rang a few times before Aunt Julia answered. She asked if I was okay since it was unusual for me to call after we'd seen each other the night before. I assured her that I was okay. She said that she had a wonderful time at dinner last night and that she was happy that Chris and I were back together. She even said that she thought we were perfect together. I tried not to sound annoyed, but after I hung up, I kicked the phone booth plenty. So Sasha had done it. She had assumed my life, and no one was the wiser, not even my aunt. I felt like I'd lost everything. There must be something I could do to get my life back. I needed a plan to expose not only Sasha, but Chris and Julius too.